What if I told you the secret to surviving the next big crisis isn't buried in some underground bunker or locked behind a $10,000 prepper kit? Nope. It's sitting in a $5 box at your local flea market, collecting dust, and most people walk right past it without a second glance. Here's the deal. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 21 survival items hiding in plain sight. Items that could literally save your life when everything goes sideways. I've spent the last 2 weeks combing through flea markets across the US and Canada, digging through piles of forgotten junk that sellers didn't even realize were worth their weight in gold. I also dove deep into emergency preparedness reports from FEMA, Ready.gov, and real-world case studies from hardcore preppers. And let me tell you, most people are prepping completely wrong. They're wasting thousands of dollars on overpriced gear while ignoring the dirt-cheap, battle-tested tools sitting right under their noses. From military-grade equipment to forgotten barter items, I'm breaking down exactly what you need to grab before the next shortage or price hike hits. Speaking of shortages, have you already noticed empty shelves or skyrocketing prices in your area? Drop it in the comments, because what you're seeing might just be the beginning. Stick around. This is the stuff no one else is talking about. 1. Manual can openers, the tiny tool that saves dinner. When the power goes out, your fancy electric can opener becomes a useless hunk of plastic. It won't open a single can of soup, beans, or peaches. That's where a manual can opener steps in, and not just any manual can opener. I'm talking about the small, rugged, military-style ones that look like they've been through a war. Spoiler alert, they have. These little tools, known as the P-38 and P-51, were standard issue for soldiers in Vietnam, Korea, and beyond. Decades later, they're still kicking. The P-38 is compact, about the size of a key, while the P-51 is slightly larger but just as portable. Both are made of tough metal, designed to last through anything. You can toss a handful of them in your bug-out bag and they'll barely take up any space. When you're hungry and the power's been out for days, you'll be glad you did. They're simple to use. Hook the sharp edge onto the can lid, crank the handle, and twist. It's not fast, but it works every single time. No batteries, no charging, just you, your hand, and dinner. But wait, there's more. These little guys can also pop bottle caps, making them the Swiss Army knife of opening things. Found a dusty can of peaches from 1987 at a flea market? No problem. Kids struggling with a juice box? You've got it covered. And the best part? They're dirt cheap. Most flea markets sell them for $1 or $2, sometimes even less. They're practically giving them away. So next time you see a bin of old military gear, don't overlook the tiny metal thing on a key ring. That's not junk, it's survival in your pocket. 2. Cast iron cookware, the indestructible kitchen essential. You've seen it before. A heavy black skillet sitting on a flea market table, covered in dust and surrounded by broken toasters and VHS tapes. Most people walk right past it, but not you. Not anymore. That's not just a pan, it's a survival tool that will outlast your house. Cast iron cookware is one of the most underrated prepper finds, and if you don't already own some, you're missing out. Here's the deal. When the power goes out, your fancy non-stick pans are useless unless you've got a camping stove. Cast iron, on the other hand, can handle anything. Cook over a fire, a wood stove, a grill, or even a pile of hot rocks. It heats evenly, holds heat like a champ, and makes the best sear you'll ever get on a steak. Eggs, beans, pancakes, you name it, cast iron doesn't care. It's ready for whatever you throw at it. Worried about rust or grime? Don't be! Most old cast iron pans can be restored with a little elbow grease. Scrub off the rust, season it with some oil, and it's as good as new. In fact, vintage brands like Wagner and Griswold are often better quality than what you'll find in stores today. And here's a bonus. Cast iron is barter gold. In a long-term crisis, people will trade food, ammo, or tools for a good skillet. Everyone needs to eat, and a durable, multi-use pan is worth its weight in gold. So next time you see a dusty cast iron pan at a flea market, don't hesitate. Check the handle, make sure it's not cracked, and grab it. At 5 or 10, it's not just a deal, it's a steal. 3. Hand crank radios, your lifeline when the grid goes down. Picture this. The power's out, your phone is dead, and you have no idea what's happening outside. Is the storm over? Is help on the way? That's when a hand crank radio becomes your best friend. It's not just a gadget, it's your connection to the outside world, and you can often find one at a flea market for less than 10. These radios don't need batteries or an outlet. Just crank the handle for a minute or two and you've got power. Most models pick up AM and FM stations, but the real prize is NOAA weather channels. These give you emergency alerts, storm updates, and official broadcasts when everything else is dark. Some even come with USB ports, so you can charge your phone just enough to send a text or check a map. It's not a full charge, but in a crisis, it's enough. Look for radios made of tough plastic with a solid crank mechanism. Some even have built-in flashlights or LED reading lights, which are perfect for late-night emergencies. Test the crank if you can, make sure the gears aren't stripped, and check for cracks or missing parts. Even older models can be lifesavers as long as they work. At a flea market, these radios are often treated like junk, but in your bug-out bag, they're pure gold. Reliable, simple, and ready when you need them most. 4. Leather work gloves. Protect your hands, save your skin. Ever tried chopping wood, building a shelter, or pulling a stuck generator out of the mud with bare hands? It's a fast track to blisters, cuts, and misery. That's why a solid pair of leather work gloves is a must-have, and flea markets are one of the best places to find them. But don't settle for the flimsy gloves you'd find at a dollar store. You need the real deal. Thick, heavy-duty leather gloves that look like they've been through a few decades of hard labor. The best gloves are made from oil-tanned leather, which resists water and stays flexible even in the rain. Look for reinforced palms, strong stitching, and a snug fit that doesn't cut off circulation. Some even have gauntlet-style cuffs that protect your forearms from thorns, hot metal, or whatever else you're dealing with. At a flea market, you'll often find these gloves in bins of old tools or work gear. They might be dusty or stiff, but that's nothing a little leather conditioner can't fix. And here's the thing. Gloves like these aren't just practical, they're valuable. In a crisis, people will trade food, fuel, or other supplies for a good pair of gloves. They're essential for any kind of manual labor, and they last for years if you take care of them. So next time you see a pair of beat-up leather gloves at a flea market, grab them. Your hands will thank you later. 5. Vintage axes and hatchets, the ultimate multi-tool. An axe isn't just a tool, it's a statement. It says, I'm ready for whatever comes next. And at a flea market, you can often find vintage axes and hatchets that have been ready since the 1940s. These aren't just old tools, they're survival essentials, and most people don't even realize it. Look for axes with full tang construction, meaning the metal runs all the way through the handle. This makes them sturdier and less likely to break. Brands like Council Tool, Collins, and Plum are gold standards, but even old Boy Scout hatchets can be great if they're in good shape. Check the blade for rust and cracks and make sure the handle isn't loose. Wooden handles might look rough, but they're easy to restore with some sanding and linseed oil. Plus, wood absorbs shock better than modern plastic or fiberglass handles. A good axe is incredibly versatile. Use it to chop firewood, build a shelter, or even defend yourself if it comes to that. And in a long-term crisis, a reliable cutting tool becomes valuable barter fuel. People will trade food, tools, or other supplies for a solid axe. Best of all, you're not paying $80 for a new one. You're paying $15 or $20 at most. So keep your eyes open. That dusty old axe in the corner? It's not junk, it's power, waiting to be unleashed. 6. Heavy-duty metal flashlights, the light that never quits. You've seen them before. Those old-school, all-metal flashlights that feel like they could double as a weapon. They're not flashy, they don't have 20 different modes, and they won't blind you with a strobe light. But that's exactly why they're perfect. These rugged, no-nonsense flashlights are built to last, and when everything else fails, they'll still be shining. Most of these flashlights run on standard D-cell batteries, the kind you can scavenge just about anywhere, even in a crisis. No fancy lithium packs, no USB charging cables, just pop in a couple of batteries and you're good to go. And because they use simple incandescent bulbs, replacing one is as easy as twisting off the top and swapping it out. No complicated tech, no fragile parts, just reliable light when you need it most. These things are practically indestructible. Drop it off a ladder, it'll survive. Step on it, No problem. Leave it in your bug-out bag for years? Just add fresh batteries and it's ready to go. Look for brands like Maglite, Eveready, or Evan military surplus models. The aluminum ones are lightweight, while the steel ones are built like tanks. Either way, check the switch to make sure it clicks smoothly, and inspect the lens and reflector for cracks or rust. And here's a bonus. These flashlights aren't just for lighting your way. In a pinch, they make excellent self-defense tools. A heavy metal flashlight in your hand feels a lot more reassuring than a smartphone when you hear something rustling in the dark. Sure, they're not as bright as modern LEDs, but they're steady, dependable, and won't quit on you. At a flea market, you'll often find them buried under piles of old electronics for just a few bucks. Don't walk past them. Pick one up, test it out, and take it home. In a world full of disposable gadgets, a solid metal flashlight is a quiet hero. 7. Canvas tarps and military wool blankets, your shelter and warmth essentials. You don't realize how much you need a good tarp until you're caught in a downpour, trying to keep your gear dry with a garbage bag and a prayer. That's when a heavy-duty canvas tarp becomes a lifesaver. And guess what? Flea markets are full of them, often tossed in a corner or draped over a pile of junk. Don't make the mistake of walking by. These aren't the flimsy blue tarps you get at the hardware store. We're talking thick, durable, water-resistant canvas, the kind used by the military, truckers, and farmers. They're tough, they don't tear easily, and when treated with waterproofing, they'll shed rain like a champ. Use them as a shelter, a ground cover, a windbreak, or even a makeshift roof for a lean-to. Look for tarps with solid metal grommets around the edges so you can tie them down securely. Sizes vary. Boot an 8, 10, or larger is ideal. Fold it up, stash it in your car or bug-out bag, and you're ready for anything. And then there are military wool blankets, often called duck blankets because of the tightly woven cotton fabric. These blankets were issued to soldiers for decades, and for good reason. They're thick, warm, and can handle getting wet without losing their insulating properties. Unlike modern fleece, they don't fall apart after a few uses. Even if they're a little musty or stained, a quick wash and some air drying will bring them back to life. Some even have brass snaps or loops for linking multiple blankets together, making them incredibly versatile. Both canvas tarps and wool blankets are low-cost, high-value items. You'll pay $5 to $20 at a flea market, not the $100 you'd spend on new ones. And in a crisis, they're worth their weight in gold. Warmth and shelter are basic human needs, and these items deliver both. So next time you see a dusty tarp or an old blanket at a flea market, grab it. You'll thank yourself later. 8. Vintage canned goods. Barter gold in a crisis. You're walking through a flea market, and you spot a box labeled Old Canned Goods, $1 each. Most people laugh or cringe and keep walking. But not you. You stop because you know that those dusty old cans might be worth more than gold in a crisis. Here's the thing. Vintage canned goods, beans, fruit, soup, or even meat from the 70s or 80s are often still perfectly good. If the seal is intact, the can isn't bulging or rusted through, and there's no leakage, the contents are likely safe. Now, I'm not saying you should crack open a 40-year-old can of peas for dinner, but in a long-term crisis, these cans become instant barter items. When grocery store shelves are empty, people will trade just about anything for a can of food they can trust. Think about it. You walk into a barter situation with a can of peaches from 1978, still sealed and looking like it just came off the factory line. That's not just food, it's a statement. It says you're prepared, you're resourceful, and you've got something rare. Someone might trade you ammo, fuel, or even medicine for it. And if nothing else, it's a great conversation starter. Oh, this? Just a little vintage survival snack. Look for brands like Libby's, Del Monte, or military surplus MRE cans. Check for tin lids, no dents, and no corrosion. Even if the label is faded, as long as the can is solid, it holds value. And let's not forget, some of these older cans were made before modern preservatives, meaning they might actually contain real food. So don't dismiss old canned goods as junk. They're not trash, they're trade gold, survival insurance, and a reminder that sometimes the oldest stuff is the most reliable. 9. Manual grain mills. Turn grains into gold. Imagine this, the grocery stores are empty. No bread, no flour, but you've got a bucket of wheat stored in your garage. Now what? You can't eat raw wheat, and that's where a manual grain mill comes in. And here's the kicker. You can often find one at a flea market for a fraction of the cost of a new one. These old-school mills don't need electricity. They run on pure elbow grease. Pour in whole grains, wheat, corn, oats, barley, and turn the handle. Out comes fresh flour, ready for baking. Not the dusty, prepackaged stuff from a box, but real, wholesome flour. You control the grind, whether you want it coarse for cornbread or fine for pancakes. Look for cast iron models like the Corona or Atlas. They're heavy, but that's what makes them durable. The metal gears don't strip, and the grinding plates stay sharp for years. Some even clamp to a table for stability while you crank. Condition doesn't have to be perfect. If it's rusty, clean it. If it's dirty, scrub it out. As long as the mechanism turns and the plates aren't cracked, it'll work. A little oil on the gears and you're in business. Why does this matter? Because in a long-term crisis, carbs are energy and flour is life. Being able to make bread means your family stays fed and sane. Plus, fresh flour tastes better than anything you'll find on a store shelf. And let's not forget barter value. Not everyone has a grain mill, but everyone needs food. You could trade fresh flour for eggs, sugar, or even help with chores. So when you see that bulky old machine at a flea market, don't walk past it. That's not just an old appliance, it's a lifeline. 10. Stainless steel water bottles, the indestructible hydration solution. You've seen them, those old, dented, shiny metal water bottles sitting in a bin of kitchen junk at the flea market. No brand, no logo, just simple solid stainless steel. Most people pass them by thinking they're outdated. But you know better. That's not trash, it's a survival tool waiting to be rediscovered. Stainless steel water bottles are tough. Drop one and it won't crack. Step on it and it still holds water. Leave it in the sun and it won't leach chemicals into your drink. Unlike plastic, stainless steel doesn't degrade, absorb smells, or fall apart after a few months. It's built to last, and in a crisis, that kind of durability is priceless. Some of these bottles even have insulation, keeping your water cold in the summer and warm in the winter. Look for ones with screw-top lids, preferably metal, not plastic. Check for dents, but don't worry too much. Small dents don't affect function. Avoid bottles with deep rust inside, though. Most just need a good scrub with baking soda and vinegar to shine like new. And here's the kicker. You can boil water in them. Put one directly on a campfire or stove to purify water or heat it for coffee. Try that with a plastic bottle. It'll melt. Plus, they look cool. Walk into a campsite with a beat-up 1960s steel bottle, and people will assume you know what you're doing. In a barter situation, a solid metal bottle could be worth a meal or a favor. So next time you see one at a flea market, pick it up. 11. Metal first aid tins. Compact lifesavers in disguise. You're digging through a box of old kitchen junk at the flea market when you spot it. A small, dented metal box with first aid stamped on the side. Maybe it's red, maybe it's green, and it's probably covered in dust. Most people open it, find it empty or full of random junk, and toss it aside. But not you. You know better. You're not buying it for what's inside, you're buying the container. Metal first aid tins are a prepper's dream. They're durable, waterproof, and perfect for organizing emergency medical supplies. Unlike flimsy plastic containers, these tins can handle extreme temperatures, resist cracking, and stack neatly in your bug-out bag or glove compartment. Some even come with interior trays or dividers, making it easy to separate bandages, antiseptics, and painkillers. Military-style tins are especially tough, built to survive the harshest conditions. Worried about rust? Don't be. A little steel wool and some oil will bring it back to life. And if the label is faded, even better, no one needs to know what's inside. These tins aren't just for first aid supplies either. Use them to store fire starters, fishing gear, seeds, or even cash. Their compact size makes them easy to carry. And in a crisis, a well-organized first aid kit can make you the hero of the moment. At flea markets, these tins often go for $2 to $5, sometimes even less if they're part of a junk drawer lot. But their value skyrockets when the power's out and someone's bleeding. Don't skip the dusty metal box. It's not trash. It's a survival essential waiting to be repurposed. 12. Old glass medicine bottles, tiny containers, big potential. You're browsing a table piled with old knickknacks and kitchen odds and ends when you spot them small glass bottles with cork stoppers or metal lids. Some still have faded labels for aspirin or tinctures, while others are plain and unmarked. Most people see them as outdated decor, but you see them for what they really are: survival tools in disguise. Glass doesn't degrade like plastic. It doesn't leach chemicals when exposed to heat or sunlight, making it perfect for storing small amounts of herbs, salts, homemade remedies, or even purified water. Need a container for iodine tablets or crushed charcoal for a DIY water filter? These bottles are ideal. Want to carry a bit of dried lavender for calming tea? Done. They're versatile, durable, and endlessly reusable. Look for bottles with corks or metal lids that seal tightly to keep moisture and air out. Minor scratches are fine, but avoid anything with cracks or chipped rims. Once you've cleaned them with hot water and vinegar, they're good to go. And here's the kicker. In a long-term crisis, containers become just as valuable as the supplies they hold. A clean, sturdy glass bottle with a good seal is a rare commodity when stores are empty. At flea markets, these bottles often sell for $1 or less. Some vendors might even throw them in for free if you're buying other items. Grab a handful. Line them up on a shelf, label them, and you've got your own prepper apothecary. They're not just cool, they're practical, reliable, and ready for whatever comes next. 13. Reusable coffee filters. Brew sanity in a crisis. You're sipping instant coffee from a paper cup as you wander through the flea market when you spot a small mesh basket or a folded piece of brown cloth in a bin of vintage kitchen gear. Most people walk right past thinking, who even uses that anymore? But you? You know better. That little filter could save your sanity when the world goes dark. Reusable coffee filters are a game changer. No paper, no waste, just rinse, dry, undress. In a long-term crisis, when stores are closed and supplies are scarce, being able to make coffee without disposable filters is a subtle but powerful advantage. Cloth filters, often made of flannel or tightly woven cotton, work with most drip coffee makers or even a jar and a rubber band. Just pour boiling water over your grounds and you've got coffee. Rinse it out and it's ready for tomorrow. Metal filters, usually made of fine stainless steel mesh, are even tougher. They don't tear, they last forever, and they let a bit of natural coffee oil through, giving your brew a richer flavor. Check cloth filters for stains or holes and metal ones for rust or bends. Even if they're a little worn, a good wash will bring them back to life. Why does this matter? Because in a crisis, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a morale booster. It's a small slice of normalcy when everything else feels chaotic. And let's not forget barter value. A clean, reusable coffee filter could be worth sugar, creamer, or even a hot meal. So don't skip the fabric square or mesh basket. It's not old-fashioned, it's future-proof. 14. Vintage water filters. Clean water, no power needed. You're digging through a pile of old camping gear when you see it. A tall, dusty contraption with 2 chambers and black filter rods. Maybe it's missing a knob, and the label is faded, but the word Berkey or something similar catches your eye. Most people would dismiss it as outdated junk, but you know better. That dusty old water filter could be the best find of the day. Gravity-fed water filters are a prepper's best friend. They don't need electricity or fancy gadgets. Just pour dirty water into the top, and clean water drips out the bottom. It's simple, effective, and life-saving when the taps run dry or the water supply is contaminated. If you find one with sealed, unused filter elements, you've hit the jackpot. Even if the filters are old, the housing might still be in great shape. Many newer filter elements are compatible with older models, so you can easily replace them. Check for cracks, warping, or damaged spigots. Minor scratches or faded labels are no big deal. Test the spigot if you can to make sure it opens and closes properly. These filters often show up in flea market estate sales or camping sections, and most sellers don't realize their value. You could walk away with a $300 system for $20. Clean water isn't a luxury, it's survival. A functional filter can keep you hydrated, healthy, and cooking for months. And in a barter situation, purified water is worth its weight in gold. Don't overlook that dusty old filter. It's not just a relic, it's a lifeline. 15. Pocket and vintage knives, the ultimate survival tool. You're walking past a table piled with old tools and rusty junk when you see a small handle, maybe bone or wood, with a gleaming blade tucked inside. You pick it up. It feels solid, heavy in just the right way. You flick it open and the blade locks into place with a satisfying click. This isn't just a knife, it's a survival essential. Vintage and pocket knives are some of the best treasures you can find at a flea market. They're reliable, durable, and often better made than modern knives. Brands like Case, Buck, Camillus, and classic Swiss Army models used high-quality steel and craftsmanship that's hard to find today. Look for sharp blades, sturdy hinges, and handles without chips or cracks. Even if the blade is dull, a quick sharpening will bring it back to life. A good knife is endlessly useful. It can cut rope, prepare food, open packages, and even serve as a last resort self-defense tool. And in a crisis, knives are excellent barter items. Need firewood? Need help fixing your generator? Trade a knife and you'll get what you need. They're compact, easy to carry, and built to last. At flea markets, people often sell them for a few bucks, not realizing their true value. But you know the truth. That little knife in your hand isn't just metal and wood. It's freedom, function, and a tool you'll use every day, whether the world is working or not. Don't pass it up! 16. Beeswax and tallow candles. Light that lasts. You're rummaging through a box of old cookware at the flea market when you spot them. Thick, dusty candles in tin cans or glass jars. Maybe the labels are faded, or maybe there's no label at all. Most people glance at them and move on, dismissing them as forgotten pantry items. But you? You stop. Because these aren't just any candles. These are survival grade. Beeswax and tallow candles are leagues ahead of the cheap paraffin ones you find at dollar stores. They burn longer, cleaner, and don't release toxic fumes into the air. Beeswax candles even purify the air by emitting negative ions, which is the game changer when you're stuck indoors for long periods. Tallow candles, made from animal fat, have been used for centuries and can last for decades if stored properly. These aren't just candles, they're a lifeline. At flea markets, you might find vintage church candles, military surplus, or handmade beeswax tins. As long as the wax isn't cracked or melted and the wick is intact, they're good to go. A single beeswax candle can burn for 8 to 10 hours, providing steady, reliable light without the need for batteries or charging. And don't overlook the container. Those metal tins or glass jars can be repurposed for storage, cooking, or even making new candles. In a long-term crisis, candles become barter gold. People will trade food, tools, or even shelter for clean, safe light. One beeswax candle could be worth a spoonful of sugar or a handful of matches. So next time you see a dusty candle at the flea market, pick it up. Smell the wax. Beeswax has a faint honey scent. If it's solid, grab it. For just a couple of bucks, you're buying more than light. You're buying peace of mind. 17. Solar garden lights, tiny powerhouses in disguise. You're walking past a pile of old gardening tools and outdoor junk when you see them. Small metal or plastic lights on stakes with tiny solar panels on top. Most people don't even give them a second glance. They probably don't work, they think. But you? You know better. You're not buying them for their original purpose. You're buying them for their parts. Solar garden lights are a hidden gem for preppers. Each one contains a small solar panel, a rechargeable battery, usually NiCad or NiMH, and an LED bulb. These components are waterproof, weatherproof, and designed to run for hours on a single day's charge. Even if the light itself doesn't work anymore, the parts inside are pure gold. The solar panel can be repurposed to charge small devices or power a DIY emergency light. The rechargeable batteries can be used in flashlights, radios, or other gear. And the LED bulbs? Perfect for creating low-draw lighting in your bug-out shelter. If the lights are still functional, even better. Place them outside your tent or shelter for safety. Use them as night lights to avoid tripping over gear, or trade them for other essentials like soap or coffee. At flea markets, you can often find these lights for $1 or $2 each, sometimes even less. Buy a handful, strip them down, and you've got the building blocks for an off-grid lighting system. Don't dismiss that bin of junk solar lights. Dig through it, grab a few, and take them home. They're not just garden decorations. They're tiny power stations waiting to be repurposed. In a world without electricity, even a small light can make a big difference.